In three, two, one. Hello, everyone. I am Opus Night, and you have joined Night Vision. Tonight, we have two authors that are joining us, and we are so happy to have them with us. Cassie, tell us about yourself.
Hi. I'm a small town Ohio girl. I spend a lot of time with my horses, and I just have always loved stories since the very beginning. When my parents would read me books as a kid, I was that kid that walked out of the library with 2 bags of books heavier than I than I was. So I love stories in any form: video games, tabletop games, books, obviously, movies, TV. And so it was just kind of a logical evolution that I would start making up my own, and here we are.
And what video games are we talking about?
I like the type with a really great story. Right now, Horizon Zero Dawn and the Mass Effect trilogy are my favorites, but I dabble with about anything.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you want to show us your beautiful book?
Oh, sure. 1 second. I was unprepared for this, but I've always got one sitting around, right? So here I have the first in my urban fantasy series. Yeah, so that's I actually write in many different fantasy genres, but as of right now, I have 3 out in an urban fantasy series and 1 in a portal series.
Gotcha. Did you want to read the back?
Sure. One foster kid, 2 worlds. If she can't catch a dangerous convict, she's going to lose the only thing she cares about in either of them, her foster parents. After years of being shoved from home to home, 16-year-old Trisha Penchant finally found a foster family she won't admit that she loves. Life is looking up until the night she wakes up in the woods covered in blood. Her supernatural ability saved her life, but it put her on the radar of the Fairy Council, who gave her an ultimatum: catch an escaped fugitive or be taken to Fairy, a place her missing mother told her horror stories about. Trying to appease the council, keeping her powers hidden from her foster parents, and learning to work with the ex-boyfriend who killed her, Trisha's brushes with death are on the rise. Pushed to the brink, she struggles to walk a fine line of doing what's right and doing what's necessary. Her choices will change lives forever.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Now we had someone that joined us, which is beautiful. Can you hear us, dear? Woo.
Isra, you're on mute.
Let me see. Oh. I'm asking. There we are.
Does it work now?
Yes, it works. How are you?
I'm absolutely knackered. I've just done a 3-hour takeover.
Yes, you did. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That would be exhausting.
Yes.
All right. And everyone, we're going to get you started with, go ahead and say your name and show us your beautiful book, dear. Cassie?
Oh, you would like me to show the cover again?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
I love it.
Thank you.
All righty. Wayne?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a million years old. I started out in Canada as a stand-up comic and then moved to the States to become a big star, and you can see how well that worked. And you know, this is my 4th novel, my first urban fantasy, which is a lot of fun. Johnny Lycan and the Anubis Disc is the first in a series. The next one comes out in December, so very excited. This is the schmancy book.
Nice.
And just really excited to be here. This is so much fun. The urban fantasy community is just a blast to play in their sandbox. So.
Okay, do you want to read the book?
Do I?
The book?
Johnny Lupul is riding high. He's got a PI license, a concealed carry permit, his first big payday, and a monster of a secret. After rescuing a bookie's daughter from Russian mobsters, the newbie PI catches the attention of a rich, mysterious client. At first, it's easy money. After all, magic isn't real, and those occult objects have to be fakes. But while chasing an ancient relic, an obsessed enemy from his past emerges. Johnny learns that the world is much stranger and more dangerous than he ever suspected. Malignant forces dwell in Egyptian artifacts, Romany suspicion is a fact, and being a werewolf may be the most normal thing he has to face on this case.
Very nice. I like it.
Sounds great.
It's
Now-
fun.
Yeah, I love fun.
Now, is it Isra?
Yep.
Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a USA Today best-selling author and Amazon #1 like 5 times. I have one series. It's called the Dark Spell series. It's actually got 8 books, but I've only got 5 physically in my hand right now. We've got this one, Her Dark Soul. Her Dark Heart. It doesn't want to show up for some random reason. Her Dark Rose. Oh, no, I've vanished as well.
Gotta love green screen.
You're right.
I don't even know what that thing is doing, so good luck working that out.
Believe it or not, people they love all the mishaps that we come up with. They actually think I stage a lot of it, which I think is
Really?
hilarious.
Everything
And
character, right?
Exactly.
obviously, the main thing about the Dark Spell series at the moment is the whole reason for the takeover is the 4-book digital box set, which has sold nearly 300 ebook copies in 2 weeks, which
Very
is
nice.
staggering amount.
Mm.
And so that is literally the promo on that is going to be ending on the 26th of February. It's been going on for about a week or so. And yeah, that's just been a massive, massive, intense climax because the final 3 books are literally going to be there in a couple of months because it's actually an 8-book series. It's taken me about 3 years to write the final 3 books in the series. And it's pretty cool with the box set because it kind of coincides really well with the completion of it. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
That is
amazing.
awesome. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a few questions, so feel free to jump right in, okay? You can address another author, by all means. Now, the questions that I pose are brought straight from readers. When you are dissecting a book after you have written it, where is the first place that you go? Wayne?
When I'm one of my own books or somebody else?
Yours.
When I'm dissecting it, boy, sometimes it's more like vivisecting it because I'm cutting it open and examining the entrails. For me, I kind of scoot through and make sure that the logic connects A to B, that the story runs linearly, because I do not think linearly. And so sometimes I have things appearing in the middle of the book that never got set up early on, and I need to watch that. And as somebody who wrote jokes for a million years, it's like getting to the punchline and forgetting the setup. So you have to be very careful.
I imagine. Now, how is it different when you are writing comedy as opposed to, you said urban fantasy?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you control that where you're not bringing the comedy straight into it?
Well, there is actually one reason I moved to urban fantasy is because I could do that. My previous 3 novels were all historical fiction, and you can't really do a good flatulence joke in a serious historical fiction thing. Whereas, there's something inherently, even among all the scares and the dark drama and all that stuff, imagine being a werewolf with claws the size of a ham and 7-inch nails and being confronted with a doorknob. At some point, the humor just emerges from that. You can't really help it. So,
Okay. Now, Ezra, how?
I feel like the person that sent this in might have serial killer tendencies, but never mind. I don't think I've ever dissected anything from my books, but my editor cut out a scene with dragons once, and
That's just fine.
I actually put it back in.
Good job.
Yeah,
We love it.
defend your turf, lady.
It obviously worked.
yeah.
And that's definitely what we try to promote on the show. It is your story. So, everyone is going to have a different take on that.
Oh, yeah.
And
exactly.
and it's always up for interpretation, even in readers' minds. You can't. I've had different characters that are kind of transfixed one way in a reader's mind, and their take on it coming back to me, the feedback is just insane sometimes. I love it, because I think it makes you a better writer in that regard. That is one of the things that it makes you more insightful to your own concepts,
Yeah.
Now, Cassie, same question.
So I usually try to read it the first time I read it through. I go along as I'm writing and go back and try to fix things and try to keep things so that when I go back to read through it again for the first time completely, that I already have a lot of the issues worked out. So the first time that I read through it all of the way, I just put on my reader's cap instead of my editor's cap and try to see what I enjoy in the story, what holds me back, and see if there's anything that I need to take out or add just so that the story can be understood. So the first time I go through it, I just try to read it as I would any other book that I would enjoy reading, and then go from there and make notes and see what needs fixed.
Now, when does a story take over? When do you take a character and immediately change them? How do you know that as an author? Okay, it's time that I add something to this character because they've completely changed from where they were in the beginning. And it might not have been your concept initially that you wanted them to change in that way. And that's kind of when the story takes off in its own, the characters and everything takes off in its own light. So, how do you handle that, Ezra?
See, my books, the plot seems to follow itself. I do have, it's actually the final book in the series, and this probably makes no sense, but for the final book in the series, there's about 5 different subplots going on. And it took me 2 years to finish it because there was so much going on, but all of the subplots link back to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a bunch of stuff that's going on that's unrelated. It all literally links back to everything. That's probably why it took me such a long time to do that. I mean, I didn't plan it initially. All this stuff kept on coming up, and I was like, well, this is the way it's going. This is the way we're going to do it.
Very nice.
It just took a bloody long time.
Cassie?
So I used to be a pantser, and I would just write the story as it came to me. And I found that made me take quite a long time to finish a book because I was discovering it as I went. So I started trying to outline, which also didn't work for me because I would discover things as I went along and then change my outline. So really for me, it's just a discovery as I go along. And I have basic plot lines that I want to hit, but the story kind of comes to me as I'm working through it. And the characters evolve just as I get to know them, just as the reader would get to know them, just as you would get to know someone else in your life that you just met. So for me, there's no particular point where I just decide that this character needs change. It just happens. I see, how they're interacting with someone, and I think about that interaction, which makes me think about the interaction with the next person they're going to meet. And so, it's a discovery for me as well.
Okay. Wayne?
Well, it is a discovery, and it's messy, and we're probably shocked to discover that the old cishet white guy has control issues. But it's weird because this is the first series that I've written. And so what I find is that each book, there's got to be a character arc, right? The character needs to go from A to B. But they're also, then going somewhere else in book 2 and somewhere else in book 3. And it's keeping those cats herded is a bit of a chore. I'm really happy with Johnny's arc in book 1, and book 2 seems to be progressing. So if I can keep all the insanity in line, book 3 should work nicely. I hope.
That's the dream anyway, right?
One lives in hope.
Now, where do you guys write? Where do you have to be in a certain place or at a certain time? Like, I write at night. That's just because I've always written at night. But I will, at certain points, I'm always writing. Whether it's during the day, I'm thinking of this or that and whatnot. But when it comes to writing novels, that's my nighttime kind of satisfaction. So where do you guys write? Is there a particular coffee shop? Is there, I enjoy writing actually in the dark outside. The ambiance and atmosphere is just incredible. Especially when it's 3 a.m. and there's no one around. It's a different world. Ezra?
I'm probably going to be the unpopular one here, as I literally very rarely leave my house. So it's usually on my sofa, and nighttime for me as well. I have 4 cats. I also have a bunch of chronic pain things going on. So during the day, there might not be much done. I might get marketing and promo type stuff and newsletter things like that done during the day, but writing is normally nighttime for me as well. Anytime after 9-10 o'clock at night, and it can go anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning.
Okay.
I am so boring. I hate me. I really do. It's funny. I have a home office because I have the dreaded day job, and I write for that. I've actually done 9 nonfiction books as well. And so I sit at my desk in my office with my lovely view of Las Vegas, and I write. And it's funny, when you asked when do you write, it's a question of when do I write and when do I type, because when it's time to put stuff on paper, like Saturday and Sunday afternoon, I just bang away at the same desk that I sit at all week. But during the week, I've had a chance to cogitate and doodle, and I sit on the deck with a cigar and stare at the hummingbirds and, jot all my ideas, so that when it comes time to actually write, I can bang out a fair number of words in a short period of time. But it's, back to the office in front of the computer, same as I am 5 days a week.
Gotcha. Cassie?
So I actually take care of horses as my day job. So in between things that I'm doing out in the barn, I'll sit down at my laptop and write out a little bit out there. But I mostly spend my writing time in my office as well. And as much of as I have always been a morning person, for some reason, I just can't get myself to write in the morning. So my writing tends to be in the evening also. When the day is done, I can relax and just enjoy and let my creative side come out. and everybody else is in bed, which is very helpful.
Now, Wayne, you said you're in Vegas, Las Vegas.
Yes.
How, when you're out, say you're out on the strip, I'm assuming, I know there is, you know, a lot of open land and everything on the outskirts. Where in Las Vegas do you said you go out on a porch and things like that. Where do you write at? Is it inside? Do you write outside?
No, I write in. I'll sit out on the deck, you know, and doodle and plot and all that good stuff. But when it comes time to actually put words together, I go into my boring office in my boring house in front of my boring computer and just, you know, I write like a grown-up. And usually Saturday and Sunday afternoons are when that happens, morning into afternoon. Is when that happens, because the rest of the time I'm sucked up in the real world. Gotcha.
Now, where are the rest of you located? Cassie, where are you?
In Ohio, up in the northwest corner in the middle of nowhere.
Now, is there ever a time that you will go out? You said that you have horses. Is there ever a time you'll go out and like read to them or try to, you know, build a story around them?
So I have a notebook that I write in when I can't have my laptop around. And sometimes I'll go out and sit with one of my favorite ones and just sit in the pasture. Or my favorite place actually is the sliding door upstairs in the hayloft, where I can look out at the horses from upstairs in the pasture. And that's a really peaceful spot as well. But I teach lessons out there and I board other people's horses. So there's a constant stream of traffic in and out of the barn. So I have to hide if I want to do anything like that.
Beautiful. Now, Ezra, where's your now?
I live in the UK.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I love finding out where everyone is, because we have people that come in, authors and creatives that come from all over the world. So I love when that happens, when I can allow readers, because they always ask, where was that author from? I love this accent, or I loved the way they dressed, or this or that. And so it's one of my fixations that I try to find out, okay, where are we grounded at? So
And where are you from?
I'm in Delaware.
Okay.
So I know it's the first state, but every time I say Delaware, most of the time I get a feedback of, well, where is that? We're the first state. That's what I'm telling you.
There you go.
Now, in the stories, when you are structuring a story, what is the first thing that you think of when structuring the story? Are you going for the immediate story itself? When I'm assuming everyone's an outliner.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
When you're structuring that story and doing your outline, what is the first thing you build upon? Is it the world, the characters? Do you want to build the atmosphere first? Or do you actually go for like the cover or whatnot? So I want to kind of get, what is your focal point when you are, okay, I'm going to sit down and pop this novel out. And this question I have been asked repeatedly. So I try desperately to make sure that I get as much detail, because readers, they seem to gravitate to the idea of where the author's coming from. And I love that. But that way they can go and try to, when they critique the stories, they go into, oh, well, I get why they say this or that. And it's an amazing thing. Now, Cassie.
Okay, so I actually like to start at the end. I like to know how the story finishes, because once I know how the story ends, then I can go back and add in all of the detail that gets each of the characters to where they're at the end. So usually I sit and brainstorm and figure out how I would like to finish the story, how I would like to, I write in a series, so how I would like to set up the next book. And from there, I can go back and think, what decisions would the characters make to get them to this point, and so that I can lay it out in a logical progression. I like, after that, I go back in and start thinking about your character arc and how the character starts at the beginning of the book, what they're like, and then that ties into my ending as well, what they're like at the end of the book. And from there, I go on to world building and then start adding in your extra characters to get all the things that you need. So that's how I go about my stories.
Okay. Ezra?
I have to know the ending as well before I even begin. I have to know how it ends. If I don't know exactly how it ends, I have to have like a couple of ideas how it might end. And then literally in the first chapter on the first page, I have to start dropping hints of where the plot is going.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's literally not going to make any sense to me.
Yeah, I'm someone that I can already see the ending immediately.
Yes.
And I draw
Yes.
backwards to the beginning. And it does feel like it's going backwards because I already know where you're going to end up. Everyone's going to end up, whether they want to or not, whether those characters try to run off or change anything. This is it. Now, Wayne.
It's funny. My first 3 novels were historical fiction, and I always began with the event. Right? What is the event? And then how do I get the character there and what happens afterwards? What I love about Johnny Lycan, and Johnny is such a great character, what I love is I started with the character. And so, for example, in the first book, it's like, what if this guy who happens to be a werewolf is trying to make it as a detective? And that kind of led to the story. The second book, I've had just inordinate fun with, because Johnny is very much a Chicago person. There's a lot of Chicago in Johnny Lycan and the Anubis Disc. And I just took him and moved him to Las Vegas. Like, what would happen if we took Midwestern boy and just moved his butt and dropped him in Las Vegas? Having just moved here 3 years ago from Chicago, people either love Vegas or they hate it. The bride and I love Vegas. We're having a great time. I know plenty of people from the Midwest who hate it, and Johnny would not be a fan. And so that led me through book 2.
Very nice. Now, within your story, who is your favorite character to write, or who was your favorite character to write, especially when you're in a series and you have multiple books? How do you keep up that character and build up that one character that you're just like, oh my God, I love this guy, or I love this woman?
That's a completely unfair question, right? Because I know. And here's why it's unfair. Because it's like when somebody asked your mother, who is your favorite child? And she had to put on this lovely face and go, I love them all equally. And I knew it was me, but I sympathized for her having to lie, right?
But there is always that one child that just picks at you, that you're just like, they have that part of them that you're like.
In the first book, it was Grandma Mostoy, who is the old lady that, without giving the whole thing away, is an old lady that lives upstairs, and she is his landlord, and she is also this bawdy, hysterical, no hoots given old Romani woman who is just a free spirit and hysterical. And so I love Grandma. There isn't enough of her in the second book. The second book has a character that all my beta readers seem to develop girl crushes on, which is kind of an interesting experience. But yeah, in book 1, it's definitely Grandma Mostoy is a hoot. She is just so much fun to write.
Okay. Ezra?
It's 2 for me. I can't pick between them. And they're both villains because I actually mainly write villains. So the first one is Astrid. That's the Raven shifter. He's literally in all of the books. The second one is the Lightbringer Samuel, because he's got all this power. He's got this really crappy job. He's got to bring these dark souls back to the good graces of the light, and he's got quite a hellish temper, and he's actually quite fun to write because he's really frustrated. He ain't a happy camper, and the nutshell of it all, which is probably about the funniest way to sum it up, he's got all this power, all this magic. He can't magically conjure up a cup of coffee.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cassie?
Say that Nina, foster mom in my story, would be my favorite character. I love that how good-hearted she is and how hard she tries just to make her foster daughter Trish feel loved, and that a lot of her life revolves around that. So,
Okay.
I completely empathize with Isra, though, because villains are so much fun to write, except you sometimes expose a little too much. I feel like I should have a disclaimer at the beginning of the book. You know, the actions of the characters do not reflect those of the management.
I actually thought of that one time. I thought it was hilarious because I had a friend of mine, and they're actually an author, and they were saying to me, you know, I'm not responsible for the things that they do. And I had to think about it for a minute because it kind of put me off, and I was like, that is true. That is absolutely true. Because when I reflect on what I've written, I would not at any point imagine myself being those characters, you know. And with that, I want to know, how is it that when you are drawing out these characters, how do you keep from making them so larger than life that people do reflect back on those characters and think, huh, there's something going on with that author there, that, you know, where did they pull this from? And do you ever think of, when you write something, do you have to think about it? Oh, how are they going to receive this one? Cassie?
no, I just write whatever I want, and if people like it, great. If they don't, that's fine as well, because I figure that people like me and are like-minded people will find my books, and hopefully we can connect. I'd say that the girl that would be the most considered a villain in my book, she is what I would consider some of my bad traits. So I do see a bit of myself in her, or how I would be if I did not temper myself, I guess I should say. I see, you know, when she gets angry over someone that she loves getting hurt, and she handles it poorly, I see that in myself, but I don't react in the same way. So it's a little bit of an outlet to have a villain that you allow to do these things that yourself, I mean, you know, you shouldn't, but you would really like to at times. So
Good answer. I like that. Wayne?
Well, it's interesting because I write almost everything in first person. And so it's really hard sometimes for readers to separate the character from the author, and the character might use a certain word or, you know, behave in a certain way, which is right for the character, but because it's me, whatever, as I'm writing it, they tend to ascribe that to me, which can be a little odd. But I'm something of a method actor when I write, which is why I like first person, because you can pretend to be that person. And because I never made it as an actor. And that's, you know, that's the fun. But it's also, you know, sometimes you get reviews that are kind of, ouch, that was unkind.
Oh, definitely. Ezra?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
When you're writing a character, how do you know that, or that the readers are not going to somehow reflect back on the author and think, how did they write something so dark? Like, I write dark literature, and I hear it a lot. You must be a dark person. You must have, you know, a savage heart kind of thing. Or you writing villains. How do you how do you keep in readers' mind that it's just a book and they don't kind of pass it on to the author themselves?
To be honest, I don't really know, because if anyone's interpreted it that way, they've never mentioned it. So, that one's a little bit, I'm kind of, 50-50 with that one.
Okay.
Because I honestly have no idea.
They haven't shown up in front of your house with torches and pitchforks.
No, definitely not.
I have truly had people walk up and go, "You are a very scary lady." And I don't know how, I don't know if I want to talk to you, because I don't know, like, I actually had a gentleman one time that kind of stood back and was just staring at me for a bit. And I said, "Boo," like that, as a joke. And he jumped and he said, "That wasn't funny." Well, I was laughing. I thought it was hysterical.
The only thing scarier, Opus, is when they think you're dark and disturbed and they come up to you and go, "You get me."
Yeah, I've had that too. Every one of my friends are just like, "I don't see anything wrong with you." And I'm like, "Well, of course you wouldn't."
I've just literally thought of something. I seem to trigger Christians for some reason.
That is the easiest job in the world.
Yes.
Yes, I know. But I'm actually a witch in real life, so,
Well, see, I grew up in Catholic school, so yeah, and kind of got pushed out of class many a day. That's all I'm going to say about it. But definitely, that is one thing that I've had certain people that will read something and go, "Oh, that's just not right," and walk away. And I'm like, "Okay, it's not for you." And as an author, you have to be able to have a thick skin.
Yeah.
Now, how do you avoid when, like, certain connotations towards your writing? Like Ezra, you said you're a witch. How do you, when you're writing, have you ever had someone address that or ask you, are these characters built off of witchcraft or anything like that? The craft itself?
I think with the books, there's a big difference between reality and fiction, because I'm pretty sure witches in reality don't go out ripping hearts and summoning dragons. But to be honest, if someone come up to me and like ask me what stuff is real and what stuff is fiction, I'd be like, well, I think it's kind of like the larger than life stuff, like I've just mentioned, summoning dragons, ripping hearts out, sacrificing virgins, dragging people. Well, technically, dragging someone from the brink of destruction could be interpreted in real life as well. But like, there's a lot of fantasy elements in there. So it's kind of dark, very dark, actually. But there's kind of issues like forbidden love. There's a lot of betrayal in the Dark Spell series. There's a lot of issues like unrequited love, exploring the idea that, somebody doesn't always have to be with a partner, and, they can go off and do their own thing. And, it's kind of exploring those deep rooted issues and just getting to the nitty gritty of it, really. In terms of like a connotation being assumed, I mean, if people want to assume that somebody can summon dragons, then that's literally on them.
Now, this show loves spoilers, and I have a lot of emails that I get for authors directly. Can we know anything about your book that we can run to that book and immediately try to find? They love this. It's almost like a find it game, it has become. So, Cassie, give us a spoiler that your readers can come running to your book and go, "Ha ha, I know where she's coming from."
So the foster kid in my story is actually Faye, and she's living in the human foster care system. and her biggest fear is her foster parents finding out her secret and not accepting her for who she is. And towards the end of the book, there's a little hint. Her secret power is that she can heal nearly instantly. And they get into a battle when she did not expect to have her foster mother along and gets hit by an arrow. And so there's a whole surprise there for her poor mother to go completely from one end of the spectrum to the other. Oh, my daughter is dying, to what the heck, she no longer has a wound. So yes, that's one of my favorite scenes, actually, because of how Nina handles finding out about Trish and the moment that they have together. So
Okay. Wayne?
I almost want to do a mulligan on my favorite character, because one of the great characters in Johnny Lycan is Nurse Ball, who, when you first meet her, is this very icy matrician. She's the nurse to the old man who Johnny works for. And throughout the book, she turns from that to this very hot-blooded woman. But at the end of the book, you learn that there is more to her than even that. And it's non-magical, but it makes her more badass. And so Nurse Ball's journey is probably the most fun in the book.
Okay. Ezra?
So the spoiler that I think of straight away is that don't think for one second that just because we've got angelics, lightbringers, and supposed goody two-shoe warriors, that they're all going to be as sweet as sugar, because everybody's got a dark side.
I like it. Now, what advice would you give for a new writer? Cassie?
That you're going to want to give up because it feels hard, but just keep going, because the feeling when you get done with the book is absolutely amazing. People say write every day. That's a little hard for me. I have a hectic life, so I don't necessarily write every day, but you do have to write even when you don't feel like it, or you'll never get anywhere.
Okay. Ezra?
See, I don't think it's just about keeping writing. I think there's a lot of research to be done. There's a lot of research in terms of marketing your book. I mean, a lot of people seem to think they can write and publish a book and everyone's going to buy it. And the reality of that is quite different. So I think the best advice is literally do your research. And that isn't something that everyone wants to hear. But at the end of the day, it's something that people need to hear, because a lot of writers go into this, they don't hire editors, they believe they don't need an editor. And, you know, I've seen a few of them just kind of tank. So it's really, really important to put that work in, do your research. If a reader comes back to you and says, you know, they don't like something or that something is wrong with the book, be willing to make improvements.
Great.
As well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, mine actually piggybacks exactly on top of what Isra just said, which is the hardest thing is to know what feedback to take and what to not. You know, I talk to new writers all the time in my critique group, and, you know, they either blithely ignore everything that they get told, or they take everything to heart and it makes them crazy. And I try to explain there's 3 buckets of feedback that you're going to get. You know, the first is a very small bucket, and it's, oh my God, that's amazing. That's fabulous advice. Thank you. That's terrific. I'm going to act on it right away. Like I said, very small bucket. The second bucket is, I need to think about that. And a lot of times that's where the real meat is, because it starts you thinking, and you might not take that piece of advice necessarily, but it starts you thinking in interesting ways. And then the third bucket is the biggest bucket, which is you listen politely and go, thank you very much. You're an idiot. And it fits somewhere in those 3 buckets. But the trick is to listen respectfully enough that you know which bucket it goes in.
Okay, great advice. Now, guys, how can readers reach you? Isra?
Amazon. There will be a Linktree link that I will email to you after this interview. And literally Amazon links, email links, social media links, review copy links. It's all on there.
Okay. Wayne?
My website, waynetrammell.com, which Isra will actually be the focus of next week, which is kind of fun. I'm on Twitter, wtrammell. That's, all the standard places where you find authors trolling for readers is where you'll find us.
Okay. Cassie?
I'm on Facebook. I do have a Twitter account that I don't use often. And then I just started dabbling with TikTok, so we'll see how that goes.
Now, how is TikTok going for everyone?
I won't even go near it. I
don't either. Ezra, have you been on TikTok?
I actually find it a lot of fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Maybe you can explain it to us.
Very small words.
TikTok, to sum it up in a nutshell, if you don't have a sense of humor, it's probably best you don't bother going on there.
Gotcha. All right, guys, I have had a beautiful time, and I thank you so much. And readers, I thank you so much for joining us tonight. Everyone, have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great being here.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.